Awesome. Thank you very much. Thanks, Kevin. That was awesome. That was really good. Love search. It can only get better as well. I think we've been doing quite a lot of work with Microsoft on syntax, and I think there's going to be a lot of really cool kind of auto classification, probably pumping straight into search, which would be really interesting. Right. Okay. So thanks for having me.
Thank you for attending and agreeing to speak.
I don't feel too much of an infiltrator because I used to live in Bournemouth, so I'm going to take that as a belonging and validation for being here. But yeah, so my name is Derrick Lakin-Smith. I kind of came up with a concept over, I guess, many years of frustration with basically talking to people, customers, colleagues, just people I know. Around the struggle people have with getting to grips with, well, Microsoft 365, Office 365, SharePoint, all that kind of stuff. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could introduce some sort of like base level, you know, like a driving license, where we could basically say, if everyone knew at least this much, you could start the conversation at the same place. So I work for a company called Agilisys. We're a Microsoft partner. We deal almost exclusively with public sector organizations, councils, police, health, so on and so on. And obviously with the public sector, they, I think, more than the most, definitely have a wide demographic of users. So the idea behind this was really about kind of coming up with a way of kind of bringing everyone on board, getting those base level. I think when we start to have conversations with customers, we kind of reach for the stars, we get excited about the capabilities, and quite often there's this like blank look kind of going, yeah, that sounds amazing, but we are like nowhere near that. I can't even conceive what that might look like. So I worked on a sort of day-long course, in effect, which would kind of get underneath the skin of what people do, what everyone does, instead of like looking at personas, looking at project managers, looking at how we do these things. It's like, what about the core things that everybody does? And is there a way that we can maybe get everyone to that same point? So this is where the connected employees concept was born. And what I've had to do here, which I didn't realize how hard it was going to be, is condense it into 30 minutes. So I might have to speak quite quickly. So I'm just going to quick obligatory introduction slide. Derrick Lakin-Smith. I head up the Microsoft 365 content and collaboration platform team at Agilisys, and that covers the whole shebang from, you know, Teams, SharePoint, StreamX, whatever it might be, basically. Lots of data migrations, lots of sort of foundational building blocks. Do you have Active Directory synced to Azure, for instance? That kind of stuff. So previously worked at Microsoft, Capgemini, Deloitte, CPS, interestingly. I know Al. That was a while ago. So yeah, that's me. I can be reached on LinkedIn and Twitter. I don't really blog. I'm way too busy, and I should blog, and I know that, and I feel bad. So where do we start? What I like to see, one of the challenges as consultants, as technologists, as engineers, as techies, is a lot of our life seems to kind of be on the org side. So we focus around the IT, comms, security, compliance, you know, keeping the lights on, SLAs, service desk, all that kind of stuff. And I think sometimes there's a disconnect between what we think or what we've been tasked, what the project says that we are there to deliver, and actually what people are trying to achieve, what the benefit, what the organization actually needs to achieve. And I thought, okay, so how do we remember these people's needs when we're planning, when we're looking at technology, how we consider the people who are being affected by this change? So obviously there's a lot of work that's being done around change and adoption, and that's very, very powerful. And not meant as a criticism, but I think sometimes that happens a little bit too late. It sometimes gets plugged on the end. We'll do some videos, we'll point people at a hub. I think that can also create friction when a new product is rolled out. And I think that's really important to consider. So this really is about trying to remember the poor people at the other end of our core tech and how we service them, how we make sure that they are getting what they want, and also fundamentally what we want them to have, because that's also our goal. So I am on a mission to strike the word user from my vocabulary. I fail miserably every single day, but I think we have this tendency of kind of dehumanizing almost. We kind of, call them end users and the user base, and there's only other one scenario where users are used, and it's not a particularly happy one. So I think what that actually helps us do is it helps us reshape and reframe where we're coming from and what we're trying to achieve. It helps us keep their needs in mind. I do actually have a tendency of trying to redefine terms. I tried to write an entire deck on SharePoint without using the word collaboration. I failed, admittedly, but I thought it was a really good thought experiment. So, but what I tried to do is I tried to think about community and effectiveness rather than collaboration and productivity, because I think sometimes we just gravitate towards the term, and all of the baggage that kind of comes with it, we kind of almost sometimes inherit. So what this basically means for us, we're looking at the democratization and consumerization of IT, computing, mobile devices, apps, cloud, SaaS, whatever you want to call it. But I think what that's actually done is also created a different organization. It's created a different demographic. When the people come into work, they go, right, I got Twitter, I got WhatsApp, I've got all these messaging apps, so I can do whatever I want with everyone I know, but I can't do it at work. Not a new problem, but I think it becomes more and more relevant in the times that we're also currently going through. So I think it's kind of our responsibility to strike a balance, basically. We know this. It's a case of, do we lock it down? How much do we lock it down? How much enablement and trust do we give the people who are actually going to be trying to do their job? So the challenge with not striking the balance is, if I can't use it, I will find another way. And that's, again, not a new problem. It's something that we've been struggling with. So what do? We lock stuff down. We lock USB ports down. We lock websites down at the firewall, which is an approach. Interestingly, as more people are working remotely, there is no firewall half the time. We're going straight to the cloud. We are working on devices, bring your own devices, etc. So we really need to, I think, change our relationship with what we're trying to do with the people. So basically, trying to balance out usability with security, compliance, enforcement, etc., is really important. And for anyone who may remember, this person in the slide is actually leaving Windows Phone to Android for that very reason. So when it comes to Office 365, it's complex. It's simple and it's flexible, which seems like a contradiction, but it actually is. And that's one of the challenges things we're always having to deal with. So what we need to do is try to, I think, take this to its simplest form. We look at what people want to do as people, not as users, not as SharePoint end users or Teams users, but just as regular people. So what I like to think about is how we define ourselves, as a employee, as a colleague, as a team member, and how we create that sort of persona and that personality. because we all work with masks. We all work with, you know, who we are at home, who we are down the pub, who we are at work. And recognizing all these different ways of working and who we are and how we interact with other people, I think is crucial to getting the right approach to, you know, getting products out there, getting people embracing what we are showing them as technical solutions, but also sort of an enablement. So, excuse me. So how do we begin to define ourselves as a persona? And how do we engage with people as that persona? And how do we get personal value from that? So I'm going to stop going on about personas and start thinking about what that means as a person. And this is unashamedly non-technical, because that's actually the point, is when people enter their job, I like to think, or I always like to think about this or frame this around a new starter. How does that person identify? How does that person connect? How does that person start building their tribe? And I think there's some crucial building blocks. I think there's some crucial things that we basically, I think everyone could really benefit from. Just a starting point to get them up and running. So start talking about Office 365 then, shall I? So my profile exists within Delve, let's say. Delve, obviously not Microsoft's greatest moment. Lack of, I think, communication. A lot of people paranoid and insecure about the security element. And I think it's kind of tarnished it. But there are some useful elements in Delve. Mainly your profile enables you to define who you are. It says, obviously, who your line manager is, what department you work in, but also individual things which are relevant to you, what your skills are, what projects you've worked on, what your interests are. And going back to Kevin's talk, this obviously all surfaces up in that search capability. It also pops up around different places in the profile cards sometimes. And again, this is one of the inconsistencies which creates confusion with the people actually using it. But I'm not going to get too bogged down in the challenge. So when we define ourselves in our profile, it's easy to communicate. It's easy to say, new starter, hey, jump into here, tell us a bit about yourself. It's like an icebreaker to the organization. And I've certainly deployed solutions in the past where that becomes part of an intranet. First time you log in, you get a nice little pop-up saying, here we go, fill out these fields, and behind the scenes, it'll publish that to your profile. Makes it super easy, and it starts everyone on that level playing field. The next element of who we are and how we fit in, I think, is really the org chart. Org charts are interesting beasts. One company I worked at, the org chart was the most closely guarded secret and document in the entire organization. It was classed as top secret because people didn't want to know, the company didn't want external people to know how they were structured and what that meant from a competition and sort of things like that. And also it's constantly changing. And until basically people were told this is your new reporting structure, it was again kept top secret. But what it does do is it does two things. It shows someone else your context within an organization. It shows who you report to. It shows your seniority. It shows who your peers are. It shows maybe something like if you need to find some information out and you're not available, who else may be able to help them. It shows what the reporting structure is. So I think there's a lot of context which kind of comes from an org chart, which seems really simple or irrelevant in some cases. I don't know if you've all seen the conversation around banning just saying hello in chat, because hello is there's no context. It's an interruption with no purpose. And so someone pings you and says hi, you jump back and you wait. Are you supposed to say hi back? Do you do the small talk? And this happens more frequent than I think we probably like to imagine. Someone says hi, gets pinged by someone else, gets distracted, and then goes on something else, and you're just left there hanging. So you don't know maybe who they are. So it's good to go and say, oh, who is this person? What's their job title? What department they work in? Really, really useful, quite powerful, and actually solves quite a lot of problems when it comes to finding ourselves within an organization and finding, what the context is. Also, I would say, don't just say hi. Say, hi, how you doing? Oh, quick question, blah, blah, blah. Carry on, get it out there, start the conversation. That's just a personal thing. The other often underutilized opportunity, I think, is your signature in email. I know we're all moving away from email, we're moving towards Teams and chats and stuff, but email is not really going anywhere anytime soon. So again, it's your introduction when you send an email to someone, either when you're instigating the conversation or when you're replying. It gives them information about who you are. I think it also gives you opportunity to have kind of contextual or time-sensitive information without spamming people. So you can say, oh, but by the way, I'm off end of December, or we're just launching a new product, check out our latest blog post. So again, it helps create context around who you are and what you do, and opportunities to kind of introduce yourself to people. So just going into the org chart piece. So we all know Teams, we all probably spend most of our life there. What not a lot of people who use it on a day-to-day basis know is the power of who. And just by simply typing in /who in the search bar enables you to pull back rich seams of information about people. It's a Microsoft app, so the trust is there, and it provides some really good information about who people are, who they report to, org chart. Also additional information, like you can ask who does what or who knows about something. The other thing is it gives you a nice view of your upcoming meetings and who you've got meetings with. So if you're thinking maybe you need to have a catch up with someone, you can have a quick look in here and say, actually, I'm going to be seeing them or having a meeting with them on Tuesday. So I'll leave it until that sort of time. So MySpace, no, not that one. We've moved on. We've moved on from there, thankfully. So what I like to call MySpace is where I spend my time, what this means for me. It's mine, it's me, it's all about it. So it all comes down to, it's all about me. I care about myself and I care about my tribe, but fundamentally that's kind of my drive every day when I turn on my computer. It's like, okay, what does this mean to me? So email isn't going anywhere. Outlook still provides a number of really useful sort of benefits, but I think it's also important to understand the limitations. And I think people basically sitting there with their Outlook client open all the time, waiting for that next email to come in, can also be a little bit limited and tied to it. So great tool, but I don't think it should be the workspace that a lot of people still are tied to. And I think the ways that we can move around that or away from that is basically using it as like a holding space, like a hanger. Things come in and then they go out again, either as a response or as an archive. Is keep that email moving. Do not use it as a filing cabinet. So I think some of the integrations that have come into Outlook, I think really help us break away from Outlook and move to the places where it's more natural to exist. Teams is obviously the prime example. It's the hub for collaboration, the hub for work, the hub for apps, the hub for getting all the information in. So it makes sense to move into that from your Outlook. So the ability to send an email into a team. Say, okay, that's done, or I need to share this with the rest of the team. There's obviously some disconnect there, but it's a really good way of getting that information into the place where it should be, where the conversations happen. I think the other thing is actions, using Planner and To Do more with, getting that again out of that Outlook workspace and into the place where it more naturally resides. So having to say, hey, here's a task, remember to do this thing. Flagging an email, obviously that triggers the task, but flagging, I've always found a little bit, it's kind of just a bucket, just one big bucket. So obviously the to-do capabilities provide a lot more rich context to that actual activity and action that you need to carry out. One thing I find really interesting is the disconnect between Outlook on the desktop and Outlook on the web. I sometimes go into Outlook on the web. It's not natural for me because, again, I'm one of those people who've grown up with Outlook desktop and still a bit tied to it. But sometimes go in there because there's some really cool things in there. So, for instance, if you highlight just a phrase or a sentence in an email, a little to-do icon pops up and you can just add that phrase into a to-do, which I think is really, really powerful, because when you've got a big chain of emails, or if you've got a lot of text in there, but it's just one piece of relevance, it's really powerful just to take that piece. And when you're in to do, it also provides a link directly back to that email. So you can just say, okay, right, I know I need to do that. Now I need to respond to that email, jump straight back. It's a lot more seamless. So again, these kind of sort of behaviors, it's about really getting people just to understand the really basic, simple objectives, tasks, and ways of using the simple tools which are put in front of them on a daily basis. Going to quickly jump onto the calendar. It does often define us. We sit there. I remember, again, anecdote alert. I used to, when I was growing up, I did spend a summer working on a farm, and the job I had was to pick wild oats out of a cornfield. So you go along with the big bag and anyone's we see. And the farmer's wife was very kind of like one of those wise ladies. And she always says, you young people, you're always waiting for something. The time means, you're waiting for something to happen rather than just living on a farm. The time of day is about, what it means to you rather than waiting for the next thing. And I think it's really quite interesting that how we can break free from time defining us, time defining what our limitations are, or what block we have to do with. So my thought around calendaring and meeting management is quite wide and complex, but I think there are things we can do naturally to free ourselves from that. I'm hoping we're all aware of all the work Microsoft are doing around well-being and reducing burnout and fatigue. So looking at things like time blocking, lunch breaks, every lunch break, focus time, and this virtual commute, which they're bringing in, things like that, where we basically look at just ways of managing our time a little bit better. So I'm just going to speed up a little bit because I'm babbling. So Teams is and isn't the answer. We know we can jump into Teams, and it's great. It has so many rich kind of tools, features, functionality, calls, video, chat, files. We can do a lot of stuff there, but there's still a lot of things we have to jump out, and quite jarringly get jumped out of Teams into a browser because it's not fully integrated yet. And as for the intranet, I think personally Teams is replacing a vast list of requirements which we used to say this is what we want our intranet to do. So I think it's again looking about how we define these things. Is an intranet just where corporate comms sends you the latest organizational news, or is it more dynamic? Moving on to my content, again, still about me, care about my stuff. So the interesting thing about my content is when I say my content, I don't mean stuff which just belongs to me. It's stuff that I have a relationship with. It's contextual to me. Someone else may own it, someone else may create it, someone else may manage it, but it's something which impacts my daily life. So I shouldn't really care where it is, who owns it, if it's in a SharePoint site, if it's in a OneDrive. It's really about trying to flatten that expectation of how we actually find content. I'm not going to even try to tackle that one on this one because we don't have 3 days. So SPO is Teams, SharePoint Online is Teams, but it's not, as we all know. We have the hub sites, we have multiple ways of using SharePoint for various things, a lot more things than just putting some files behind a chat. So it's about, trying to level this complexity. When we go in and we speak to a person who's just trying to use this stuff and try to explain, the structure of a Microsoft 365 group and the security in the permissions and the membership, yeah, we've lost them already. So again, it's around trying to level these things down and use different capabilities. Search obviously is one. I think syntax will go a long way to also trying to level these things as well. And one of the frustrating things around intelligent suggestions or Office 365 bringing stuff to you is most of it is driven by what was recently used. That's just one of many signals, and I think it's interesting that we're still not getting enough signals to basically say what is it I'm actually looking for. And when we're talking about content, videos and images, we're becoming, larger consumers of videos and images, not just because of the bandwidth in our phones and devices, but also because AI is making them more contextual, more relevant. We can search, we can say there's a dog in this one, because there's always a dog in an image when you use it as an example. So I have 3 dogs, so it's always a relevant thing to me as well, because most of my images do have dogs in. And then obviously the massive change that Microsoft just announced around Stream, and obviously how that becomes more challenging. It's not really about that specifically, but it's about when Microsoft make new platform changes like that, is how we again simplify those changes for the people using the platform. Can we make it simpler? Can we make it easier for them to understand and use? My favorites, oh my. So stuff that I want to keep, stuff I want to find again. How do I manage that? It's still, it's still frustrating. When you look around Office 365 and a wider suite of products, every surface has a different way of storing or favoriting or bookmarking or creating a folder or a board or whatever it might be. And again, that's really, I think, confusing and challenging for people. Some of these things can be resolved with the graph because there is an endpoint. Some can't because there isn't. So I think, again, simplifying, instructing, guiding people along a standard approach. And the more we do the standard approach, the easier it is for people to work together as well, because everyone's using that standard approach. So obviously we can save messages in Teams, we can pin in office.com. And I spent a little bit of time trying to figure out what that actually means. When you go to office.com, your homepage, which is basically replacing Delve, I would say, feel free to disagree with me on that one. You have your recent file list, and then you have pinned, then you have shared and various other things. But in the pinned list, there's nothing there, obviously, because you haven't pinned anything. But how do you pin stuff in the first place? And discovered that if you look at your recent files, you get a little pin icon, and you can pin that to your office.com homepage. Which is fab as a concept, but it's not scalable. You can't categorize, you can't label, you can't filter, etc. I've seen Microsoft's own internal version of that, and you can do a lot more. So hopefully we'll see a lot more coming to that space. Save for later is, again, a weird, really, really weird one, because it should have come out. It should be everywhere. There should be a little hover icon over most files, which basically says save for later. But at the moment, you can really, or I can only really access it for pages in websites, in SharePoint, intranet sites. And I just want to say the last thing on this one is something I do personally, is using To-Do religiously. So To-Do is my dumping ground. The reason why I use To-Do is because if I'm reading an article, I think, oh, that's really interesting. I haven't got time to consume it all now. I'm going to save that for later. I literally just go, because I'm normally reading it on my phone, I'll just go share, and I'll share it to my To-Do, and I'll put it into my read later To-Do list. There is no, as I say, there's no simple way which brings all this together. And I think that's, again, which causes confusion for people. Right, I'm going to speed up again. Right, my time is about how I spend my time, and my time is literally belongs to me. And I think it's important that we take control and ownership of what that means, because it is yours to give. It's not always possible. There's always going to be people who demand and enforce giving your time. But I think it's something which we have a tendency to take for granted. And I think that's something which is really important now. We kind of take back. And again, this comes to the next point, which is create space to think. Big fan of focus. Time without distractions, turn the internet off, turn the music off or on, depending on how you focus. But I think it's really important to assign and allocate time for focus. And part of focusing is actually unfocusing. It's called unfocused, but what it means is basically letting your mind wander. I think probably mindfulness and sort of stuff like that is around that kind of unfocused kind of thing. But it's really going for a walk, just letting your mind wander. Do the Hoover, cook a cake. You know, these kind of things actually help you sort of let your mind wander a little bit and actually find a lot more solutions than when you were really forcing ourselves to try to think about a solution or force it out. And this is a favorite one of mine, is basically don't attend meetings. But you can't just not attend meetings. So I think I quite like to encourage people to record meetings, because that means anyone who isn't able to attend for whatever reason is able to also look back and refer to anything that's discussed, especially when they'll be given actions because they're the one who isn't in the meeting. Very common. And there is some new functionality coming to Teams around meeting spaces, which again will do a recap and bring all the stuff together. And I think there's some really interesting and useful things coming around that. Obviously, with recordings, big files, there's GDPR potential issues, there's retention period issues, it's not just a case of simple on or off. But I think it's really important to at least consider that around the new structure. The other thing is drive behavior. Use your signature, use what it is you do around getting other people to try to take the same approach. And again, because I had to squeeze so much of stuff into 30 minutes, I've kind of like really done a abridged version. So really, this is the only bit I kind of look at the wider, what about us? What about us as a team? And something I find really interesting is small, incremental, but frequent communication is better than any other type of communication. Two reasons for that. One is too much communication generally creates a sort of confirmation bias almost. It's you reach consensus too quickly. It's right, quick, everyone, talk, right, consensus, yeah, great, move on. The other side of the thing is if you don't talk at all, don't communicate with the team, then people just go into their own heads and kind of say, well, there's not much point, or everyone comes up with different ideas. And the other side of your persona is meetings are really personal. Your voice, your tone, your face, your background, what you're wearing. It's something which defines our personality. It's something which I think is also not really considered very much. I think, again, standardize the approach if you can, and see if there are ways of finding that common ground. Again, focus time. I keep putting this external sharing should be turned on, because I think it should be turned on. A lot of people want to turn it off, but if you turn it off, you go back to that thing. If you stop people from doing something, they'll find a way of doing it outside of your visibility, your monitoring, your audit, and that will obviously create all of the shadow IT implications. So approach, how do we do this? It's about creating like a foundational approach to enabling connected organizations. It's not about Office 365. It's about the people. It's about how we actually treat each other. It's how we connect with each other. We start with everyone on the same page. Again, as I say, if everyone does just this basic stuff the same way, the collaboration, the cohesion, and the ways of working evolve naturally. Get simple, like really, really simple. You easily define what's in it for me with them. Love that term because it really helps us know that we're going to struggle. Collaboration has always been a thing. It's really beneficial. You know, everyone's going to have all this great stuff available if you collaborate. It's like, well, if I don't, then I got all my stuff and I'm fine. So it really helps kind of get past that question. Remove the what to use when question, because we create some really simple scenarios. We say just day-to-day life. This is how we live. This is what we do. This is where we gravitate towards. And then people have their own opportunity once they've got that base level. Everyone's on equal pegging to then find their own ways of doing things and then manage that evergreen a bit better, because they are. It doesn't matter if change comes in because they've got their base level. It's not as disruptive if people are doing things a different way or if they're still experimenting and something changes on the platform. So a completely off the wall idea and thought I had is basically create everyone in one team for them and only them and call it me. And use that as that place where you store everything. Send all your links in there. If you've got, you know, if you do expenses at the moment, probably the expenses claims are going down significantly. But if you only do it once a month, where is that expense claim? We used to use the intranet, but the intranet is going away slowly but surely. Use My Analytics. Let it define your focus time. Let it define your lunch time. Let it help you understand your day better. It's not about your boss looking at how productive you are. It's about you maximizing your time, understanding your pattern, your behavior, and making decisions based on that. Etiquette and behavior follows culture, generally. But etiquette and behavior can define and influence culture too. So as people change, so will culture. Well-being is not new, it's just more relevant because of obviously stress at the moment, working longer hours, being in more meetings. But if and when things go back to some semblance of normality, let's keep that genie out of the bottle. Let's keep focusing on that. Create baseline digital skills. These are the building blocks. That's really kind of where I started this whole journey for. I did this because I wanted teachers locally in my little town to be able to use the tools that they've got better to support the students, because my daughter's a student. So again, what's in it for me? This all comes from a selfish perspective. There are also some apps ready-made or deployable to actually help us on their way. Company Communicator, Microsoft app template. I installed it in 20 minutes. Gives you a good way of getting communication information out to everyone within Teams. Icebreaker, it's quite cute. It's a random matchmaking. Hey, why don't you guys just randomly pick 2 people, work together for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, whatever. Who I've already mentioned. Yammer. We always forget about poor old Yammer, but it is getting better. Now with obviously better integration with Teams, I think we can do more with Yammer. I think build better communities, because I think we can all see there's more need for that at the moment. If you haven't used calendar.help, it's a Microsoft research project, uses Cortana to help arrange meetings. So for instance, if I send an email to 3 of my colleagues or friends or whoever, and I CC Cortana, and I say, Cortana, can you arrange a meeting for us next Tuesday for about an hour? It will take information from my calendar automatically, because I've already given it permission, and it will suggest some times to my colleagues to say, Derrick wants to meet up on this day for half an hour. Oh, I can see that you're free at these times. Or maybe you can suggest a time. And what it does, it goes backwards and forwards until consensus is met. It's very similar to Find Time, but apart from the fact that Find Time is basically a voting. But again, that's also quite helpful about managing time, especially when you're dealing with external people, clients, or anyone who you don't have access to their calendar view. My Analytics, big benefits by My Analytics, because it looks at and understands how you work, and maybe gives you some good suggestions on how you can work better. And the last one is bookings, which I think is actually something which could be really useful internally as well. I know it's designed as a small business tool for window cleaners and hairdressers, as I like to say, but I think it also can actually help you say, look, I'm going to publicize to support desk, or if you want to say to clients that I've got some time just to offer you a workshop. Can be really, really helpful. So that's me. I've talked very quickly and probably for too long. And now the question is, am I still on Teams? Is my microphone still working? And am I still actually here?
Yeah, Derrick, you were on mute.
Thanks.
No, that's brilliant. Yeah, thank you very much. There's quite a few comments in there as well. Kevin, Chris, and Nathan, I think, had a few. So we're liking that. So yeah, sounds good. Thank you.